I think Brother Kwame Ture will explain more what AAPRP is all about, and the focus of today is Pan-Africanism, the New World Order. And without waiting anymore, please, Brother Kwame Ture.
We thank you. We bid you good afternoon. Our topic is the future of Pan-Africanism and the New World Order, but simply, you know, the New World Order is nothing but the Old World Order. And the New World Order is necessary because the Old World Order is breaking down thanks to the resistance of the oppressed. And it is clear that the resistance of the oppressed is not going to diminish, it's going to intensify. So the New World Order may not even get a chance to impose itself like the Old World Order did. You must again see the word here is order, not justice. And all oppressors are concerned with is order so they can continue the exploitation. What we must be concerned with is justice, and the only way we can have that is by disrupting the order so that continual exploitation ceases. So, for the New World Order and the Old World Order, it's just a SOS, same old, same old. Just that they're having a lot of trouble. They can't just walk in like they used to everywhere and take everything without anybody standing up to them. And they want to return it to the arena in which they can do whatever they want to and maybe stand up to it. But we have nothing to worry about. If we just look at history, we'll see that all history is a struggle of the oppressed against the oppressor. And even when the oppressed rise up and the oppressor knocks them down, the oppressed rises up again. The oppressor gets stronger, more technology, knocks the oppressed down, but they rise up again. And no matter how large the empire is raised, the oppressed rises up against the oppressor until they destroy the Roman Empire, until they destroy the British Empire, until they destroy the French Empire, and it's certain they're going to destroy the American Empire. Our relationship with the New Order will only be relationship we'll only be concerned with it in relation to Pan-Africanism. Now, you must understand Pan-Africanism and understand its process. All societies have a tendency to go from smaller social aggregates to larger social aggregates, from the family to the clan to the tribe to the village to the nation to the continent. This is innate to all social organizations. Not only is it innate to all social organizations, it is an evolutionary process. You can see the nature of this evolutionary process by looking at Europe, whose tribal wars have scarred the world, yet Europe speaks of continental unity and ensures us that by 1992 it will be a continental-wide governmental apparatus. So wherever you can see this aspect, this human aspect, to go from smaller social aggregates to larger social aggregates is innate, not only innate, but evolutionary. This Africa has the same will to go from smaller to larger social aggregates. But this process, our evolutionary process to arrive at continental unity was stopped. It was interrupted by colonialism and slavery, two aspects of capitalism. And this colonialism and slavery is one of the worst holocausts that humanity has seen. It took 300 million of the young and strong out of Africa, killing 100 million on the way to arrive to allow them to be exploited by European imperialism. You must not assume, as has the enemy, that because the desire, the will for unity has been stopped, that it has been stopped in the desires of the people. On the contrary. In the book, The Myth of the Negro Past, Melville Herskovits properly points out that African culture, once suppressed, becomes more resilient, more resistant, and more insistent. Thus, while our process, our evolutionary process, has been interrupted, in no way has it diminished the will for unity on behalf of the African masses. But this evolutionary process being interrupted, the only way Africa can arrive at continental unity is through a revolutionary process. Then you must understand that this revolutionary process has been imposed upon Africa by the historically determined forces. Our evolutionary process was interrupted. This evolutionary process, which was interrupted, now leading Africa to a revolutionary process, we pointed out was interrupted by capitalism, its offshoots, slavery and colonialism. Thus, any movement to unite Africa must be an anti-capitalist movement. If it is not an anti-capitalist movement, it will only further divide and fragment Africa. Now, of course, you know, because we live in a capitalist system and they try to confuse us so much, that's their job. Matter of fact, capitalism does not lie some of the time, it lies all of the time. I mean, I'm serious. Even when you look at their commercial, they're lying, right? I mean, if you don't find a commercial, you can end up in Saudi Arabia being all you want to be. You got to fight this system all the time, all the time. Capitalism, of course, is a system come to put cobwebs in our minds and make it appear as if Africans are no longer concerned with unity. Even they make it appear as if Europe can arrive at continental unity before Africa, and that can never happen. Let me give you just 3 quick factors, just to show you, the reason we're doing this is to show you that the desire for unity among the African masses has not diminished, in fact it has intensified. And their culture represented and shown everywhere, displayed clearly before all of mankind. Europe tells us that the reason Africa cannot unite is because we have so much tribal warfare. You know, we're always fighting each other with tribal warfare, and because of this tribal warfare we can't come together. Well, if tribal warfare keeps a continent separated, Europe will never unite. Because the tribal warfares of Europe has not only scarred Europe, they've scarred the world. Because they've taken their tribal warfares outside of Europe. In the island, Trinidad, where I was born, the French fought, the British fought, the Spanish fought, the Portuguese for Trinidad. And if you look all around the world, you will find European imperialism clashed with themselves everywhere for taking the loot outside of Europe. So if it's tribalism that stops us from uniting, just the amount of French killed by the Germans in all of our tribal wars, we didn't kill that many. So the issue is clear. On the question of politics, you must look at it carefully. Africans seem to have a monopoly on corrupt leadership. I mean, the scum of our race dominates us. I mean, these pigs seek individual luxury in the midst of mass suffering, of the suffering of the masses. Yeah. So there's no question here. We have the most corrupt leadership in the world. I mean, our bourgeoisie, all we need to do is roll them up in a big black ball and shoot them to death. But the force of our people's desire for unity politically is so strong that none of our corrupt leaders can come before the people and question African unity. Even the one who's paid by imperialist agents to divide us must come before the people and say, I'm for African unity, but we need to go slow. You know, we need not to try that one. Let's take time. But none of them can come and say they're against it because of the power of the political strength. If you will pick up your newspapers, every day you will find a European leader, whether it's Major, whether it's Mitterrand, or don't care who it is, making the statement that European unity is not good for our country. If we have it, it will raise the prices of agriculture, it will raise our tariffs, it will increase problems for tourism. I mean, and they rationally discuss the need to keep Europe divided. This couldn't happen. And finally, on the cultural level, whereas the mass level, you can see the real weight of it. I've heard songs sung to Germany, to England, to France, but I've never heard one song sung to Europe. The songs I've heard sung about Africa, I could stop just with Bob Marley alone. And finally, to show you the cultural weight and desire of the masses of the people for unity in Africa as opposed to Europe, you will never find anybody wearing a map of Europe around them. You must understand that the force and the desire for continental unity in Africa is stronger than in any other continent. This is a result of our continental unity being erupted, the evolutionary process, which now forces a revolutionary process which speeds up the entire process. Okay, thus we must know it. Oh, one thing we have to go against capitalism, so confuses us. Now they're trying to make believe that socialism doesn't exist. These pigs. They got a new thing now. Socialism has fallen. Socialism has collapsed. All the socialist governments have gone. They've come to confuse the people to let you think that you can judge a system by its adherents. You don't judge any religion by its believers. Who in this room judges Christianity by Christians? If we judge Christianity with Christians, it crumbled with Judas. You don't judge any system by its adherents. You judge a system by its principles, stripped of its adherents. You judge a religion by its principles, stripped of its believers. When we come to judge Christianity, we judge it by its principles, not by Christians. When we come to judge socialism, we judge it by its principles, not by socialists. If every Christian betrays Christianity, the principles remain intact. If every socialist betrays socialism, the principles of socialism remain intact. Thus, in no way are we confused by them. Now, there's, of course, a racist tint to this, and you must be very careful here. Some white left groups in the country have been guilty of this error, even some on the international footing. They have always been pointing out that Karl Marx invented socialism. I've even read it in books by intelligent people of political levels. But Karl Marx cannot invent socialism. It cannot belong to Karl Marx. Socialism is a universal truth. It belongs to all. We call in America the laws of gravity Newton's laws, but everybody knows Newton cannot invent that a body falls at the rate of 32 feet per second square. Any man, any woman sitting in Timbuktu, just observing the laws of gravity, will come to the exact same conclusions of Newton. A body in motion tends to stay in motion, unless stopped by an outside force. So it is with the laws of socialism. If I'm sitting in the deserts of Libya, in North Africa, looking at the relationship between capital and labor, I will come to the exact same conclusion of Karl Marx. Where capital seeks to dominate labor, there will be a ruthless struggle on the part of labor against capital until labor comes to smash capital and to dominate capital. This is a universal law. The great contribution which Karl Marx made to humanity is in the area of dialectical materialism and historical materialism. But since they don't want you to know nothing about that, they don't even mention that. We say the laws of socialism are universal, belonging to all. And for Africans, we know that the values of a socialist system are to be found in communalism. And communalism rested very, very, very long in Africa.
Yes, sir.
Thus, the ability for Africa to move rapidly to socialism has not been affected, and genuine African revolutionaries, understanding socialism as our only economic system, have in no way had their enthusiasm diminished by the collapse of the Eastern Bloc. On the contrary, we are more enthusiastic to show to the world that socialism is the only just economic system. There are only two economic systems in the world, capitalism or socialism, only two. And there can only be two because every economic system must answer one fundamental question. Who will own and control the wealth of the country? Who will own and control the means of production? The question can only be answered two ways. Either a few will own or everybody will own. It's as simple as that. The American capitalist system will confuse us and make confusion to justify the fact that a few people have the right to own everything in the country. And when a few people own everything and have the right to own all the oil in the world, they will send you to spill your blood so these pigs can get more oil and become more rich off your sweat. Socialism is the only just economic. So we're not confused. We are socialists, not only socialists, we tell you Pan-Africanism is inextricably bound with socialism. One cannot be a Pan-Africanist unless one is a socialist. This point must be properly understood. The garbage that comes out, they lie all the time. Even when they tell the truth, it's a result of a double lie. I want to introduce to you a brother whom you all know, Brother Oba Teshaka. He's chair of the Black United Front and head scuffer at the above all, he's a Pan-Africanist. This aspect of Pan-Africanism is very difficult for us to deal with because the enemy has done so much to hide Pan-Africanism. I mean, if you take a man like Frantz Fanon, how many of you heard of Frantz Fanon? You'll hear a lot about Frantz Fanon, but you'll never read that Frantz Fanon is a Pan-Africanist. You hear he's a revolutionary, he fought here, he fought there, he did this with the French Communist Party, but nowhere will they call him a Pan-Africanist. And Frantz Fanon is a sterling example of Pan-Africanism. He was born in the Caribbean, in Martinique. He left there, went to France, was trained there as a psychiatrist, sent by the French army to fight in Algeria. Recognizing the contradictions, joined the Algerian Revolution, and they destroyed As a Pan-Africanist, he's important for us because most Pan-Africanists, those in the diaspora born outside of Africa, do not look to North Africa. And here, Frantz Fanon has come to concretize these ties properly by making a proper impact on the Algerian Revolution. Even today, when they study the Algerian Revolution, they have to study Frantz Fanon. Consequently, we want to tell you, when you talk about Pan-Africanism, you talk about something that the enemy is trying everywhere to hide because it is the only solution to our problems. This aspect of hiding begins everywhere. In the first instance, just to cut us off from Africa completely. You know, Malcolm X is powerful. And Malcolm X could see a long way. And Malcolm X could see things clearly. Malcolm used to say all the time, the tragedy of the American capitalist system is that it will teach people to hate themselves for no other reason than to continue their exploitation. And if you will look, the truth of it is clear for Africans. I mean, we don't identify with Africa. We the only people who think we ain't got no nation. I mean, everybody in this country, except the original indigenous owners of the land, whose land it is and will always be. American capitalism will confuse you and let you think justice is a quantitative question. Yeah. I mean, this country, if you steal some money and hold it for X number of years undetected, the money can legally belong to you. But justice is not a quantitative question. It's a qualitative question. If somebody steals this from me and I die tonight and they keep it for 1,000 years, it will never belong to them. A thief is a thief until he returns to him. We want no confusion. This land belongs to the original indigenous people, commonly called American Indians. And they are fighting. I know CNN is not there, but they are fighting. Even while we sit here and talk, they're fighting. While we talk, some of their greatest warriors are in prison here, like Leonard Peltier, who's been in prison for 13 years, going blind, simply because he dared to fight for the self-determination of his people's rights in their own land. Everywhere the people struggle, the struggle is not cut by time. Here the Irish give us a sterling example, as sterling as the British pound used to be. Over 800 years ago, British imperialism marched into Ireland with the job of ripping off the labor and land of the Irish. Today, 800 years later, the Irish continue their gallant fight to strip British imperialism from occupation of the land. It is only an unconscious man or an unconscious woman who doesn't recognize if it takes another 800 years, the Irish shall continue to fight. This is because human beings have an instinctive love of justice. Instinctive. You can see it just by taking a cursory glance at history, where everywhere you will see the people rising up against forces more powerful than themselves, being knocked down, but rising up again. This is the history. The history of African slavery in this country shows this point beyond a shadow of a doubt. They came here slaves and everywhere rebelled, got knocked down, rebelled, got knocked down, rebelled, got knocked down, rebelled, got knocked down, but rebelled till they destroyed chattel slavery. The instinctive love of the people. Thus, the instinctive love of justice for the people is clear. There's no question here. The task of revolutionary organizers
is to take this instinct and bring it on the level where we come to be rational, where we come to reason. Thus, we must come to make unconscious struggle conscious. We must come to make unconscious struggle conscious. This then is the struggle for Pan-Africanism in the future. We have demonstrated that our people automatically have a strong feeling for the love of Africa, just by the maps they wear around their neck of Africa, just as the African names they give their people. We have seen this force for African unity is strong among the masses, but it's on an instinctive level. It must be raised from the instinctive level to the level of ration. Simply put, we have the hearts of our people, but what we need is their minds. We have the hearts of our people, what we need is their minds. This powerful aspect of our struggle, that is to say, this spontaneous aspect of it, this instinctive level of struggle, must not be undermined. On the contrary, it's by looking at it that it shows us the correct potential of destroying American imperialism. I mean, we have such hatred for the enemy that even without planning unconsciously, we can attack him. If you go to the rebellion in Watts in 1965, here you'll see a clear example. I mean, every night before August 1965, policemen come in our community, they whoop up on our heads, do like they want to us. We stand there and look and mumble to ourselves. We don't decide to plan, attack the police, nothing. We just mumble. One night in August, they come, they arrest a brother who is drunk, you understand? The brother pushes them, they use some force, which is necessary in their job to bring the brother under control, and the entire community goes off. I mean, they burn. I mean, they shoot at the police. I mean, they back the police outside the community. They call it the National Guard, and they throw Molotov cocktails at National Guard. They take over the entire community. All of this unplanned and spontaneous. Do you know what will happen when these Africans plan it? The point then must be clear. We are saying, first of all, that in Pan-Africanism we have to struggle. And since we're struggling unconsciously, it behooves us to struggle consciously, to plan our struggle. Certainly no one in America can deny this. The statement is clear. No African, not even an individual African in this country, has made any advancement without the shedding of the blood of the masses of our people, whether the confrontation was violent or non-violent. This must be properly understood. Comes to get confused. We make no advancement in America without shedding blood. I mean, to sit in a filthy 5 and 10 cent store where you want to, you got to shed your blood. To sit on a bus just like everybody else where you pay the same amount of money, you have to shed your blood. Even if you're rich and you got money and you want to live anywhere you want to live in this country and you're African, you got to shed your blood. I mean, even to get your children to school where you pay taxes just like everybody else, you got to shed your blood. And to get the most sacred aspect of what they call democracy, the vote, you got to shed your blood. Nobody sitting in this room can show me one instance where we Africans have made an advance in this country without shedding our blood. And what we say is that the shedding of the blood is unconscious. It makes no sense. Look, logic at least will impose itself upon us. If you got to shed your blood in the 20s, in the 30s, in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, unconsciously, logic will tell you, better you get together, let's plan one time, shed our blood, and destroy the capitalist system. Thus, for the African masses, the necessity for conscious organization is a prerequisite for liberation. It's a prerequisite for all people for liberation, but for us especially because we struggle anyway. I mean, we struggle anyway, we're going to have to fight them anyway. So since we have to do it, it behooves us to come and plan it properly. This then is the aspect that we must look at because this is the transformation that we want in the 90s out of our struggle. We want to stop spontaneous struggles, we want to go to organized struggles. Africans in America are the most revolutionary, instinctive group in the country. We have been on the front lines in every struggle, indeed given directions to struggles unconsciously. If you will look at the anti-Vietnam struggle in the 1960s, you will see Africans unconsciously directed this movement. On the extreme left, you have the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee with the statement, hell no, we won't go. And they destroyed the draft.
In the center of the movement stood Martin Luther King, giving moral determination to the movement to ensure the Vietnam War was stopped. These Africans unconsciously give direction. It is time that we become conscious. And when we become conscious, we will make rapid advance. I mean, look, when I was a young man working for SNCC, you understand, I did a lot of struggle to destroy the draft and to work against the war in Vietnam. I'm an old man now. I'm almost 50. Just I'm talking about, if I live a couple of months, I'll make it, you understand? And at 50, it don't make sense for me to go and repeat what I did when I was 20. It makes no sense at all. You know, you must qualify your actions. Human beings cannot make quantitative progress, only qualitative progress. And you get quality from critically organizing quantity. Just as a tangent, to give you an example, if a child doesn't know how to count from 1 to 100, and we teach the child how to count from 1 to 100, after the child knows this, certainly the child has made progress. We must applaud. Yesterday they couldn't count from 1 to 100. Today they can. But until that child can critically organize those numbers, knowing that those numbers will have no effect upon human life. It's only when the child comes critically to organize those numbers to do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division that those numbers become so useful that we can lay out fields, we can go to the moon. It is only through critically organizing quantity that progress is made for human beings. A clear political example can be given. In the 1960s, we had few elected officials in this country. Today, Africans in this country have more elected officials than any other ethnic group in the country. I mean, we have over 315 mayors of the biggest cities in the country. We have more Congress people than any other ethnic group. We have more state and county local elected officials than any other ethnic group in the country. While we have more quantitatively, we have less power than every other ethnic group in the country. So some people get confused. As a matter of fact, even our history, they make our history quantitative history. He was the first. And here's another first one for you. And there's another first. And here's another first. So it's quantitative progress. No. The only way we make progress is when we come to critically organize this quantity and make it be used as a weapon for the people. Thus, quantitative progress for human beings is not progress, only qualitative progress. So to come to repeat the anti-Vietnam War in the 1990s with more people is not progress at all. We must qualify the struggle in the 90s, not only to stop the war, but to stop all wars. Therefore, we must make this movement, the anti-war movement, an anti-capitalist and anti-Zionist movement to stop all wars. Pan-Africanism is the total liberation and unification of Africa under scientific socialism. Pan-Africanism is the total liberation and unification of Africa under scientific socialism. Pan-Africanists say what all conscious Africans say: until Africa is free, no African anywhere in the world will ever be free. Thus, the basis of Pan-Africanism is Africa. We understand the problem we have in America. In the first instance, we have to convince the Africans that they belong to Africa. I mean, capitalism is really terrible. I mean, it will make the truth a lie. I mean, I don't see how Africans can get confused. I mean, nobody in the world look like us except them, so, I mean, it must have something, you know. But people deny it. I mean, in spite of, I ain't no African, I mean, looking like it. Look at you. You can't hide yourself. You can't hide yourself once you're African. Mother Africa is so strong, when she puts a stamp on you, 400 years of cold weather, not NOLA, and frying your hair will not be fried. Matter of fact, Mother Africa is so strong, no matter what strong chemicals you put in there, she come in and snatch it up. And we try to deny it, you know. We're the only ones that can't deny it. The enemy knows we're African. Yes, capitalism making it happen. The only reason we're not proud of Africa is because we're ignorant of Africa.
Yes, sir.
Any man, any woman, African or non-African, who is not appreciative of Africa, is ignorant of all aspects of world history and world civilization. We didn't say African history. Because any man, any woman studying world history, world civilization in any area will see Africa's overwhelming contributions to world civilization, world history, must appreciate Africa.
We give you just 4 in passing, but let me tell you something. We know the problem we have. You know, I live outside of America, you know. And it's very funny. Outside of America, when a revolutionary regime comes to power, they seize all reactionary books, they burn them, and they ban all reactionary journals. When a revolutionary group comes to power, they ban reactionary journals. They burn them. When a revolutionary group comes to power, when a reactionary group comes to power, they ban revolutionary books and they burn revolutionary journals. They burn everything. But in America, they ain't got to burn nothing. They can leave the books there for y'all. Y'all don't read them. Y'all free. To worry about y'all. Y'all don't read nothing. I mean, in America, the capitalist system not only makes the people stupid, but keeps them arrogant in their stupidity. And this is happening in every aspect of Americans' life politically. As a matter of fact, they make people make great decisions of their life based on total ignorance. One line, instinctive lines they throw out. The Vietnamese are communists, let's wipe them out. Saddam Hussein is a monster, let's get him. Could you imagine that? They know nothing about Kuwait. They know nothing about Iraq. They don't know when they were together. They don't know how they came apart. They don't know what force put them apart. They don't know what moral force kept them together. They don't know why after conditions made they didn't come back together. They don't know what Zionism is. They don't know what the state of Israel is doing. They know absolutely nothing except Saddam Hussein is a monster. That's why they lie. This stupidity in the country, this calculated stupidity, affects the African masses more because they read even less than the others. And they need to read more than the others. Our people suffer because they lack knowledge. At this stage of human development, one of the best ways to acquire knowledge indirectly is through reading. I mean, I know you all dance a lot, and I ain't got nothing against dancing, but who can go over to the library once in a while? Knock a book down, pick it up, you might put something in it. The old man in Africa told me, son, if you want to give your son something, he said, don't give him no house, fire can burn it up. He said, don't leave him no money, inflation can eat it up, somebody can steal it. He said, put the truth in his head, nothing can take it out. Thus, in order to be a Pan-Africanist, one must study. In order to be a Pan-Africanist, one must study. In order to be a Pan-Africanist, one must study. You can't come on that jive-o. You got to study. Now, I know the difficulty we have in making our people study. I know it. When I was honorary Prime Minister of the Black Panther Party, my job was to collect the guns for the party. Matter of fact, I was always clever. I knew when trouble came, I'd have to have the guns under my control. So as soon as I got in the party, first thing I was looking for was the guns. That's right. The guns were under my control, you understand? Because according to the Panther makeup, the East Coast, the army of the Black Panther Party was divided into 2 divisions, and first the Field Marshal. There was an East Coast Field Marshal and a West Coast Field Marshal. The country was divided along the Mississippi River. Anything from the Mississippi to the east was held by the East Coast Field Marshal. Anything from the Mississippi to the west was handled by the West Coast Field Marshal. The East Coast Field Marshal was a brother by the name of Chico Neblett, now named Sekou Neblett. Of course, we started to stick together, came in the Black Panther together, so we had straight ideological line. Up till now, he's a member of the All African People's Revolutionary Party. On the West Coast, they had a brother by the name of DC, Narcotics. Now, before I came, I was looking around and heard about this brother DC. I got to get him under my wing. When I came here, since the Panther leadership was afraid of the guns, they put me to stay with DC. So, I had both of them under my wing, so I had the guns. Yes, now, Eldridge and them were talking. Only the FBI in our group knew the strength of the Black Panther Party. They didn't even know what the strength was. And I always keep the guns under my control. Because I know when trouble go down, talking is good. But as we used to say as kids, talk is cheap, said Big Boy Pete. I got a 45 by my side. Yeah, so we always have, you know what? One of the things that keep me going, people say, what keeps me going? What keeps me going is the beauty of my people. I have a golden opportunity every day of my life to meet true brothers and sisters who come willingly to give their sacrifice, to give their blood, to give their life for the struggle. And they don't even think, hear me well, They don't even think that when the struggle advances, that they will be capable of occupying any of the positions up there. As a matter of fact, they'll tell you, like one just told me in Ghana the other day, he said, well, you know, he said, what we gonna do, he said, I ain't got no education, he said, and I don't much, but I can get out there and fight, and once the place opens up, you can go up there and talk for me. That's the attitude. They don't even expect to enjoy the rewards. They think they're incapable of enjoying the rewards. This is what keeps me going all my time. Of course, in our revolution, I see a lot of opportunistic scum in this. But this beauty of the people, their willingness to sacrifice all just to advance the struggle, looking for no rewards, is what keeps me going all the time. And I meet them on the Panthers. I used to meet them all the time. I mean, brothers and sisters who got touched by the movement and really wanted to fight. And you go there, you know, they want to show me everything they knew, you know, because I was their prime minister. You know, they never had one, you know. So I come in there and they say, come back, Prime Minister. They blindfold themselves, sisters, you know, take their guns down, break it back, put it together, blindfold, say, how we doing, you know, and they're ready for target practice, and I'd be appraised that y'all doing well. And I take a little pamphlet out and I say, hey, look, I want you all to read this pamphlet. Why don't read no book? Why don't read no? I don't understand. I don't read no book. What you want to read for? That's to say, they were willing to shed their blood for their people, but not willing to acquire some ideas for the people's struggle. So I know the struggle. I mean, our intelligentsia is the most corrupt in the world. Because since we have the most corrupt bourgeoisie in the world, and they're trying to join the bourgeoisie, it's logical, it's clear. But we have to fight with our intelligentsia, because they have to use their knowledge for the people. And that's why we say we're struggling for the minds of our people, not the hearts. But we got the hearts. If I asked every one of you, how many of you love your people? Every hand would go up. If I were to ask you, how many of you are working for your people? Look here, Brother Kwame, we like our people, we love them. So we understand what we're talking about is working. Pan-Africanism then calls for study. I want to make it clear here. If you're a Pan-Africanist, you got to be studying, because the reason why we're ashamed of Africa is because we're ignorant of Africa. We said any man, woman ignorant is ignorant of world history. Africa's contributions are overwhelming, just in the area of religion. Africa gave monotheism to the world, belief in one God. And when Africa was practicing monotheism, no other area of the world was doing so. To the east, they were worshipping the sun. To the north, they were worshipping idols. The first chronological religion to preach monotheism, belief in one God, was Judaism. Africa gave Judaism to the world. I know it's hard for you even to understand this, but it's because you don't read. If you would go and get a book by Sigmund Freud, I didn't say Ben Jokander. I didn't say Dr. Ben. I said Sigmund Freud. If you would look at Sigmund Freud's last book, it's entitled Moses and Monotheism. And they hide it, but it's there in your library. Boogaloo over there. He's knocked down some books in the floor. If you will go and look at this book, you will see Freud using archaeological, historical, and psychoanalysis, among other proofs, come to show us that Moses was an Egyptian. And of course, you know, Egypt is in Africa. Africa stabilized Christianity for the world. We can't understand how these Christians who call themselves Africans bow down before a white Jesus, except we know they don't read. I mean, not even their Bibles. And if you go in the house, you find a Bible in the living room, a Bible in the bedroom, a Bible in the bathroom, a Bible in the car, but everywhere. But they don't even read their Bibles. Because any Christian reading the Bible, knowing the history of Christianity, could never have a white Jesus. I mean, if you just look at the Bible alone, if you just look at the Bible, Europe is not mentioned until the very end, in their Revelations. The first country mentioned in the Bible is Ethiopia, Genesis 2, verse 13. It may be called Cush in your Bible, but Cush is the name for Ethiopia. Genesis 2, verse 13. When Jesus Christ was in trouble and everybody was trying to kill him, it was Africa that protected him. His youthful life was spent in Africa. It was there he grew physically, spiritually, and intellectually. The first church in the world came out of Africa. The first monastery in the world came out of Africa. The very intellectual development of the church came out of Alexandria, which is not in Greece, but is in Egypt. As a matter of fact, Jesus Christ is not a question to quibble about his color. He could be just about any color. But the one color he could not be is the color he's always painted. He never stepped his foot in Europe. He never saw it. And the religion of Christianity was not spread to Europe by the disciples, but by the apostles who came along after the disciples. Well, if you do some history and some reading, you Google, you will see this white Jesus is nothing other than the uncle of the artist who painted the picture.
say these are Africans who call themselves Christians, they just don't read, that's all, and that's why they're confused. But capitalism will confuse you even in the church. You can imagine the debilitating effect it must have upon our psychology, bowing down before a white man who is the Son of God in his image. And the Bible says, thou shalt have no graven images before me. Africa saved Islam for the world at a time of peril. When the feudal lords of Mecca was trying to hunt it down and destroy it, it was in Ethiopia they found refuge. It was the Ethiopians who saved them, conducted them to rejoin the Prophet in Medina, where he was called, and then once having rejoined, could rapidly spread Islam. Just in passing, we've given 4 contributions of Africa to world civilization in the arena of religion. Monotheism, belief in one God, Africa gave to the world. Judaism, the first chronological religion, speaking monotheism, Africa gave to the world. Christianity, Africa stabilized for the world. Islam, Africa saved for the world at a time of danger. Which man, which woman? African, non-African. Atheist, believer. Knowing these facts of Africa's contributions to world civilization will not have great appreciation for Africa. Anyone who doesn't appreciate Africa is an ignorant man and an ignorant woman. Anytime you see Anytime you see an African ashamed of Africa, do not scream at them. Try to stimulate them to want to look to Africa. That's your only job. You must know what your job is. Because once you stimulate them to look to Africa, once they look, they're hooked for life. So all you have to do is just to push them to look to Africa, to want to study. It's not your job to tell them the great things about Africa. Just push them to Africa. Once they get there, you don't have to worry about it. They'd be so proud to be African. Look here. They wouldn't put nothing in their hair. They just wanted to study. Dread, Jack. Hey, dread. Just to go straight to dread so you won't make no mistake. Yeah, I'm African. They chase all the bald heads out of town. Pan-Africanism calls clearly for a proper understanding of Africa. So in order to be a Pan-Africanist, you must know Africa's history. In order to be a Pan-Africanist, you must always be studying Africa's history. I study it all the time. I know that if I live to be 140, I will not know all there is to know about African history, but being a conscious African, this will in no way diminish my enthusiasm to want to know everything there is to know about African history. Because I know, the more I know about my history, the better able I am to serve my present in preparing for the future. Consequently, if you're Pan-Africanist, you got to know your history. I know how we love us, but we don't study us. I know. But if you love your people, you got to study your people. Matter of fact, if you got a little boyfriend, you want to know everything about him. Who were you with before me? What'd you do before me? If you want to know everything about a little boyfriend, that's only one person. What about the people whom you say you love? If you really love the people, you want to know everything there is to know about your people. Everything. You want to know who did them bad, how they did it, so you know how to stop it. You want to know what forces are slowing them down, so you know how to speed it up. Once you love your people, you want to know everything about your people. So we're not talking about talk here, we're talking about action. Pan-Africanism demands that we understand African culture. Here we must pause and take some time because there's so much trouble. North Africans in America think we have the same culture as everybody else. They really went for that melting pot stuff. I guess we only ones melted. Everybody's hard rock, Jack. Everybody go to, oh, my parents came from Germany. It'll take a minute. We don't even, where your parents come from? Mississippi. And before Mississippi, you don't know Africa. Africa, how do you know? I look at you, that's how I know. Yes. This aspect of our culture is necessary. All peoples have different culture, and your ideology comes from your culture. This struggle has been a strong struggle that Pan-Africanism has been waging. And they've been waging for a long time. And if you know the history of Pan-Africanism, you know George Padmore. And if you know George Padmore, you know George Padmore, who was an African born in the Caribbean, organized the United States in the Caribbean and Africa, was picked up by the International Communist Party under the time of Stalin because of his great organizing skills and was attached to them. He became a colonel in the Red Army. He taught at the universities. He knew people like Ho Chi Minh, Mao Zedong, Nehru. As a matter of fact, it was his job to finance these movements in their national liberation struggles against European imperialism. He was an advisor to Stalin on the national question. When Germany invaded the Soviet Union, Stalin called him. He told him, okay, Dick, from now on, the major enemy of your people is German fascism. Leave British imperialism, French imperialism alone. We need them to join the Allies to crush Germany. They don't know it now, but sooner or later it'll have to come. So we have to prepare the ground for them. Padmore got up, looked Stalin face, square in the eyes and told him, Germany has no colonies in Africa. The only colonies we have are British imperialism, French imperialism, Portuguese imperialism, Belgian imperialism. These are enemies, and these are whom we're going to fight. And he left the Soviet Union. Now, all Pan-Africanists, like I'm a Pan-Africanist, I know this. And I've known this from a long time. I'm almost 50. I knew this when I was about 17 years old. You understand? So since I've been 17, I have never looked to the Soviet Union for anything, because I know they have been opposed to Pan-Africanism. We have never attacked them. This must be proper. Now, in fact, the only African revolutionary who has attacked them having some Pan-African character, though not dominantly a Pan-Africanist, is C.L.R. James. He attacked them everywhere, but not even Padmore attacked them. Even though they attack our party as small as we are. You look at all their books on Pan-Africanism. They take time out to attack us, but we don't attack them. We understand our major enemy is imperialism. And we do not diverse our energy except from the major enemy, imperialism. So we never attack them. But one of the problems is this question of culture. And the Pan-African movement have clashed with the international communist movement, the international socialist movement, over this question. In the first place, they tried to make it appear that the only ideology that can lead you to socialism was Marxism-Leninism. And that if you got out of the ideology of Marxism-Leninism, you couldn't be a socialist. Of course, we understood from the very beginning this was a trap. In the first place, your culture comes from, your ideology comes from your culture. Of course, Europe will not understand this, because if you will look at struggles in Europe, you will see Europe herself has never waged cultural revolution. This aspect of cultural revolution, being hooked into world revolutionary movements, came from Africa, Asia, South and Central America. It was here that the cultural revolution was held up. So much so that Amilcar Cabral, Secretary of Africa, could say that liberation itself is an act of culture. And that great immortal fighter for the people, Mao Zedong, was able himself to wage a cultural revolution. Thus, once you look outside of Europe, you will see cultural revolution put on the format of revolution. But inside of Europe, it is not put on the format for revolution. So, ideological struggle in Europe has not been a force, but outside of Europe, it has to be. You must look at your own culture. I just want to give you an example of how, if you don't understand your own culture, you get confused. The example I make is one that risks in misinterpretation. But since I understand the truth of what I say, I'm willing to let the misinterpreter fly, because those who are serious will correct themselves through struggle. Now we say Africans in America have a different culture, not the same as everybody else. That's a fact. Everybody in fact has a different culture. It doesn't mean that one culture is superior to the other, just different. Because in the life-sustaining institutions each society makes, every society leans a little bit heavier on one or the other. For example, every society in the world produces music, every society. But we can truthfully say that the dependency of music to Africans in their society is heavier than in other societies. I mean, you can almost say that without music, Africans would be finished. That's how heavily they depend upon music. Other societies do not depend upon it that heavily, but all are equal. If you will look at the African society and its culture, and it's our only weapon, and Pan-Africanism is going to force us to look at our culture more and more, to struggle seriously, you will see that certain diversions can arise. Excuse me. In the late 1960s, when the spontaneous movement was spinning out, the FBI, these pigs, scum of humanity, that's what they are. You know, I'm not talking about what they do to me. I said, I'm trying to kill them, so if they kill me, it's their business, you understand? You should look at what they do. Matter of fact, if they ain't doing nothing about me, I get worried. Second Ray says, if the enemy not doing nothing against you, you ain't doing nothing. You understand? So when they're not doing something to me, what am I doing wrong? But don't look at what they do to me. You look at what they do to someone like Martin Luther King, and you see what scum they are. You understand? You just look and see what they did to him. These pigs will get in your bedroom and try to destabilize your family to stop you from struggling. I know them, you understand? I've been knowing them, you understand? But if you will look at the end of the 60s, they tried to bring a lot of confusion to the movement. I mean, and they brought it on every level, especially on the ideological level. One of the movements that sprung up since the late 60s was that movement of gay and lesbian liberation. You know, our party, we're a revolutionary party. We're a revolutionary party. So any injustice anywhere, we have to look at that struggle seriously. We properly analyzed the problem, saw the situation, and kept our distance from the struggle. Well, you know, the struggle increased and everybody was getting involved. I mean, everybody was getting involved with it.
So finally they themselves decided they had to have a meeting with us because for some reason we weren't involved. They came to see us. They said, you know, we have a gay and lesbian liberation movement. We said, yes, we've studied it. And you know, all the revolutionary movements are really new, some revolutionary, you're not in it. We said, that's correct, we're not in it. Even the Communist Party's in it, so-and-so's in it, this one's in it, all these African groups in it. We said, yeah, we recognize all that. And Jesse Jackson comes to speak to us. I said, yeah, we saw all that too. And yeah, come, we got in there. I said, yeah, they said, well, we don't have nothing to do with this. They attacked us, you know, they just threw out a string of invectives against us. Macho, all this. When they finally told them, listen, we are all African People's Revolutionary Party. We struggle from our culture. We're not confused by others. We know our culture. If you will go throughout the African world, you will find no intolerant behavior towards homosexuals. Our culture is tolerant of homosexual behavior. If you go here or there and find an isolated incident, it is just that, an isolated incident. Whereas the people, we are dominantly tolerant of homosexuality. If you will look at the history of Europe, it is dominantly intolerant of the question of homosexuality. It is that problem, we understand it, but it's not our problem. We told them, look, we got too many. We don't need others which don't exist. As a matter of fact, you take up that problem and you might create a problem in your community. So you have to know exactly how you're fighting based on your culture. We give another example, that of women's liberation. You know, Africa produced the first queens in the world. And these were not plain queens, they were queens with full power. And whenever these queens were on the throne, Africa advanced politically, economically, socially, and technologically. As a matter of fact, that historian, Henry Clark, doing some research will show you, any time an African queen was on the throne and Africa was invaded, there was no compromise at all. If a brother was on the throne, talking about the sisters. So you will see that African women have an early tradition of total equality inside. As a matter of fact, on a continental-wide basis, Africa's family structure was matriarchy. So there's no question here. But today, African women are oppressed by their men. As a matter of fact, they are oppressed on every level, from the physical to the ideological. I mean, seriously oppressed. But African women, in their culture, have different relationship to their men. While their men oppress them, and we oppress them everywhere, the one place we cannot oppress them is on the front lines fighting for the people. If you know nothing of Africa's history, you will know the names of great African women who have been on the front lines for history. Not only the queens of Africa, I mean, you will know Nzinga, you will know Yaya Santue, you will know Harriet Tubman, you will know Sojourner Truth, you will know Fannie Lou Hamer, you will know Ella Baker, you will know Rosa Parks, I mean, you will know Angela Davis, I mean, you will know Assata Shakur. Yeah. This culture must be properly understood. With this record, it's easy to convince brothers to get up off the sisters. You understand? Look here, brothers. These sisters whooping this man and we sitting on him. All we got to do is get up and sit down by ourselves. They'll take him on hands down. By themselves. And the issue of pushing women's liberation has a different edge thanks to our cultural struggle. That's why the knowing of our culture becomes crucial, and especially crucial in this period. Because there's going to be more confusion everywhere. But this culture will come to show itself more and more. I remember when as a young man working for SNCC, I said, oh, these Africans, they speak in different languages in English, and white people can't even understand them. They call me all sorts of racist, you understand? But do you know today, I know 98% of white people in this country cannot understand rap. I mean, they got to sit down and slow play it to get it. So you see, the culture shows the alienation more and more away from capitalism, not less and less. And their job is to try and make it everywhere. Brother said to me, I don't care what you say, these people going back. You see, before in the 60s they had naturals, now wherever you go they got their hair fried. I said, that's right, but in the 60s you saw no dreads. Wherever you go you see dreads. The struggle is polarized. Polarizing. So this cultural struggle is important, and it is here that Africa wants to put up the cultural struggle. Africa says to the entire world, for us, cultural revolution is the most important revolution. Cultural revolution must be the most important revolution to us because we have imposed upon us inferiority complexes which distinguishes us from other oppressed masses. I mean, we really feel that we are inferior. It is for this reason that it is so easy for us to be divided as a people. It is so easy for us to come to destroy each other because of the self-contempt which we have for each other. Consequently, this aspect of cultural revolution must play a crucial role, a vital role in the African revolution. We must come through proper struggle, we must come through proper study to understand the contributions which we made to humanity, to scientifically understand that not only are we equal to others, but that we have made an equal contribution to world civilization just like all others and have a responsibility to continue doing so. This aspect of cultural revolution is crucial. So Pan-Africanism in the future will go deeper into our culture. It will go deeper, and again, we must be careful here, you know, we have so much confusion. We are nationalists. We are nationalists. You know, many so-called Marxists have been fighting us for years. They used to call us narrow nationalists, chauvinists, racists, only because we're nationalists. You understand? They come to confuse the issue. When you look at Europe, when you look at its political beginnings since the 13th, 14th, 15th century, you will see that Europe went from nations to states. If you will look at independent countries now which have fought against colonialism in Asia, Africa, South and Central America, you will see they go actually from state structures to nation. There's a big difference. When you go from a nation to a state structure, if you use nationalism, it must lead to chauvinism. But when you go from a state structure to a nation, you must use nationalism. Consequently, following the laws of dialectics laid down and observed by Karl Marx, he tells us that everything has inside of it positive and negative at the same time. And depending upon the conditions, one could be dominant over the other. I mean, you're students, you innately have consciousness, you know you shouldn't cheat instinctively, and you cheat. But there's always a chance that the biggest cheater can become the most honest person because there's always constant chance for this struggle. Just like the most honest person can become the biggest thief on the campus. So this aspect of dialectics, the opposite against the positive, must be always borne in mind. When nationalism is used in Europe, it is dominantly negative. When it is used in countries outside of Europe, it is dominantly positive. Thus for us, nationalism becomes a key basic component of our struggle. And the only nationalism we can have is African nationalism. Because we are Africans. We have been stolen from our nation. You know, it's only an oppressed and unconscious and confused human being that having been stolen from their nation, oppressed by the kidnapping nation for centuries, will seek to become a citizen of the kidnapping nation. You understand? I mean, the oppression is serious. It is non-stop. Matter of fact, we should love Africa more than any other immigrant in this country. But we love Africa least than every immigrant in the country. All immigrants left voluntarily. They came here looking for a better life. They happily turned their backs on their home countries. But no African, I mean not even the one who likes American Coca-Cola more than he likes his people today, left Africa voluntarily. And not only that, when we got on the boats, they got on the boats having a good time. When we got on the boats, we got in hell. Because those slave ships were nothing but hell. And today we still find ourselves in hell. And still not the first to swim back. Figure the hell we catching, we should be the first to say, where is it? I'm jumping in the water, I'm gone. Yes. You know, slaves used to jump over their ships and commit suicide rather than stay in slavery. We have a strong tradition of struggle. We must know it properly. We must come to love Africa and know that Africa is our only nation. It's only when you know that Africa is your nation that you will not be confused fighting for any other nation. I'm a soldier. I'm a soldier in the African Revolution. I fight, you understand? I march, you understand? But I only march to the music of Africa and for the benefit of the African nation. Never will I march for Africa's enemies. Never will I march for America's enemies. So Pan-African for Africa's enemies, and you know America is Africa's enemies. We really laugh at these people who say they're African American. Give me a break. Give me a break. You're going to be African American, you're really going to be schizophrenic. You'll be both
America's against Africa. You know, in every way of life, America's against Africa. As a matter of fact, America got her wealth off the rape of Africa's human and natural resources.
Yeah.
And America maintains her wealth off of the exploitation of African labor and African resources. In order for Africa to be free, they got to free themselves from the imperialist grip of America. So one cannot be African American. I've never understood it. I'm African, I'm American, you know. I've said, even a dog, you know, look at it, bro. If you take a dog, you know, and you steal it from his house, and you beat him and beat him and beat him and treat him bad food, give him bad food, as soon as the door is open, Jack, if you don't bite your hand, he's gone. But us, capitalism oppresses worse than the dog. Where can you find a better word? It sounds like a sick woman who's oppressing herself. Oh, he don't love me, he didn't beat me. Give me a break. Give me a break. The oppression is ridiculous. I mean, oppressed and we still holding on to it. You understand? Oppressed and we still find ourselves wanting to fight. You understand? The struggle that we have as a people is a serious struggle. And it must come to the fore, it can only come from the fore again from relying upon our culture. And understanding that it is our culture that will lead us to the proper unification of our continent, which was interrupted by capitalism. And until that process, which was evolutionary, now revolutionary, is completed, no African anywhere in the world will be free. It's a scientific phenomenon. As to the issues of this war, which we're asked to mention, really we don't talk much about it, simply because, you know, when America talks about morality, we tune out. I mean, America talking about morality is like a thief talking about honesty. I mean, you just got to tune out. We say, you know, if we're the imams of Mecca, and American imperialism is fighting the devil, as Africa is our mother, we are Satan comrades in arms. We fight against American imperialism anywhere. We live Malcolm. Malcolm said it clear. Whatever they're for, you must be against. So we're against American imperialism in every aspect of life. We said we have nothing to worry about. They are popping champagne corks because they think that they've got a victory. But they don't know the people. No matter how big your empire gets, no matter how much you unleash weapons, it doesn't deter the determinants of people. On the contrary, it increases it. America has already lost that war because the hatred for Israel now has increased to such a level that if they thought they didn't have peace since 48, they will never have a minute of peace anymore. Everybody's going to be trying to get a piece of Israel. And they're going to take the example, drop the bomb. America has brought contradictions up for everyone by this war. When those who see what she has done, the savage and barbaric attack against this country, even those who supported it will vomit. America has lost this war a long time ago. The contradictions here will rise. This is nothing but a Pyrrhic victory. The determination and the hatred of puppet leaders throughout this area will multiply seriously. It will be difficult now for any country having any relationship with America to have any regimes there. And what America is doing is trying to show the people that if you have a leader that we don't like, we're going to kill you to get rid of your leader. That was the line they took when they went into Libya in Africa. They came to bomb Africa, they said because of Gaddafi. So they tell me that because of one man, they come to bomb my mother, and I'm supposed to go for that. They're going to tell the people they want Saddam Hussein, and they destroy the entire country for Saddam Hussein. So all they're trying to say to the people is, look, if you get a leader who don't fall down on his knees before us, we're going to make you pay for it. You understand? But all they're doing is telling the people, once you get ready to fight these pigs, you can't fight them with no conventional army. You got to fight them with the entire masses mobilized in arms. That's a all they're doing is putting it on a higher level for us. This war doesn't mean anything. American imperialism is getting weaker and people don't see it. As a matter of fact, you cannot fight ground wars. It has to depend upon technology to win its wars. And technology can only win once the people are not properly organized on a mass basis, determined to fight. Once they are, like in Vietnam, they will bring America down. So the lessons are clear for all to see. America is losing. America is weaker today than she was in the 60s. Don't get confused. America lies all the time with its words and slogans. America doesn't have a voluntary army. It has an unemployed army, and there is a big difference, and the difference must be properly understood.
voluntary army is an army where people on their own volunteer to give their lives to defend the ideals of the nation or to fight for liberation. In Azania, South Africa, the Pan-Africanist Congress, one of the liberation movements fighting there, have what is known as the Azanian People's Liberation Army. They, unlike the African National Congress, have not suspended armed struggle. They continue with armed struggle today, and they're dealing blows to the oppressor, even though it's not on the news. They are a voluntary army. Any African inside Azania, South Africa, recognizing that the only way their liberation will come is through armed struggle, volunteer to join the APLA. The Palestine Liberation Organization has a volunteer army. It's a volunteer army. Palestinians, seeing the necessity to come and wage struggle to liberate Palestine, come to join the army and all of its different factions in the PLO. Cuba has a voluntary army. Even though every citizen in Cuba, on the mainland, on the island of Cuba, is armed and in the army, every war they fight is with volunteers. Even the Bay of Pigs invasion was fought with volunteers. All those who went to Angola volunteered. They have a voluntary army. America has an unemployed army. And an unemployed army is the weakest army you can have. A volunteer army is the strongest. A draft is the next strongest. Because even though people are drafted, they might get confused and think, well, everybody's doing this except the rich. Everybody's doing this, and I guess that I too get I'm supposed to do it, and after all, in the country, I have a responsibility. So the draft can confuse you, but the rest has been destroyed. Now all they got is not a voluntary army, but an unemployed army, because the only people going into that army are those who do not have a job, seeking to get out of poverty, trying to get skills. Some people think they go to college, but they're making this, of course, based on errors. They don't study the American army. If they study the American army, they would know that capitalism equals war. Matter of fact, when you spell capitalism on your test papers, you spell W-A-R, you'd be correct. Look at America, just take a quick look at America. She is less than 220 years old. She has waged over 376 armed escapades into countries outside of America. She's only 220 years old. Out of these 376 armed escapades, she has legally declared 73 wars. If you look at America, you will see that it has fought more wars than countries much older than itself, like France, England, Spain, Russia, Syria, Iraq, like all of them put together. So when you speak of capitalism, you speak of war. America must have war. So anytime you join there, you're joining a war machinery, nothing else. In our movement for Pan-Africanism, we have to get Africans out the U.S. Army. As a matter of fact, we have to destroy the U.S. Army. And in destroying the U.S. Army, we must be clear, following our people's logic. There's no longer a voluntary army. There's no longer a draft army. There's only an unemployed army. Thus, we must be clear and give conscious direction to the peace movement here. Ain't no talk about bring the troops back. That's not the issue. To stop this war, to get rid of the army, all you got to say is give jobs to the unemployed. Give jobs to the unemployed. And then those who are really conscious can push a little and say, in a country, everybody's supposed to have a job. You're supposed to have full employment. That's all you're supposed to say. Once you have full employment, you'll have no army in the United States of America. We must be clear in our scientific work. More propaganda is needed among the poor white than among any other segment of the society. For the African masses, though more of them are in the war out of proportion to their numbers, their reasons for being there is clear, and the contradictions are easy to push them so they won't have anything to do. All you got to say, look here, brother, you shed more blood defending American democracy than any other ethnic group in the country. And you shed your blood in America only to advance democracy. You got to wake up. The contradictions are there to push them. The white poor doesn't have these contradictions, and they eat up that Rambo stuff. You know, they eat it up because they've got nothing else. So we have a task, a little bit difficult because they ain't brought no Rambo out looking like us yet, so at least there's still some contradictions. But it's our responsibility to make sure that the white left directs a lot of its propaganda to the white poor, raising consciousness among them, raising up their political level. And while they do that, of course, we'll be working probably with the African masses. And of course, in this work, propaganda plays a key role, a key and crucial role. And we should not be afraid of propaganda at all.
Matter of fact, we must use it. They use it all the time. They play with the truth, but they don't get bit by the truth. They play with Martin Luther King. They play with him so much that most people in America who don't know nothing about King except what they get off TV, which is a whole lot of Africans. Most of them, they think that Martin Luther King's best speech is "I Have a Dream." But anybody who knows King knows that this is one of King's most mediocre speeches. What you want to do is to begin to spread King's propaganda. We want to begin to spread everywhere King's speech, "Why I Oppose the War in Vietnam." It's now the job of the movement of this country to make that speech the known speech among the African masses, among all people in the country. I mean, we want people reciting it by memory. On Martin Luther King's birthday, we don't even want to hear "I Had a Dream." We want to hear "Why I Oppose the War in Vietnam." We want the peace movement and all movements concerned with peace in this country to reproduce that speech everywhere, push it everywhere until it becomes the dominant speech of King. Once that happens, working with stopping war in this country will be as easy as putting a knife through butter. We must understand precisely what our task is. We are fighting with this capitalist system on every level, in every way. They give us no corner, we must give them no corner. We said our final task, our most important task, is transforming the struggle from a spontaneous struggle to an organized struggle. This is where Pan-Africanism comes to play its crucial role. Pan-Africanism says that Africa will not be united without a mass party. Underline the word mass party. We're socialists. But you will see wherever socialism is being built by a vanguard party. Africa comes to make a proper contribution to world history and the world revolutionary movement by introducing the mass party. Thus the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. This our party is a party which is a small party, very small party. But we have chapters in Africa. We have chapters in the Caribbean. We have chapters in America. We have chapters in Canada. We have chapters in Europe. We are very weak in South America, namely Brazil, Guyana, and Suriname. But we have cadres and programs attached to this area to bring them up soon too. We are a small party, but we are a Pan-Africanist party. The growth of our party is slow, but the development of our party is fantastic. We have developed cadre in our party who have been properly trained to do so, to be revolutionary cadre, which is one of the things we lack as a people. Our biggest weakness as a people is that we lack unity of thought, although we have unity of action. It is unity of thought we need to continue permanent action. Because we lack unity of thought, having unity of action, our action is usually spontaneous, rising up for a minute and sitting down. Once there's proper unity of thought, the struggle will be permanent. So we say mass organization is the only way to arrive at Pan-Africanism. Indeed, we say mass organization is the only solution to all our problems. And as you will hear anyone from our party, we will always tell you when we're getting ready to close, we say, we want you to join our party. You know, if you go to this table here where you find some committed comrades, they will tell you a little bit about our party. It's a revolutionary party. Man told me, you know, if I join a revolutionary party, will the FBI watch me? I said, oh yes. He said, I don't want to watch it. I said, who told you they're not watching you? You know, the people in America really think the FBI just watch the activists, but a few of us in the country. Why they got all the files they got? They watch everybody. The only difference is that we know they're watching us. You don't. So they watch you anyway. You understand what I'm talking about? You shouldn't let them watch you. You should be like us. You should start watching them. Yeah, so we organize to watch them. You understand? Yes. That's our side. All right. One thing is clear. If you want to fight for your people, there's no half-stepping. If you want to fight for your people, you've got to be prepared to sacrifice everything. As a matter of fact, if you truly understand struggle, you will understand the greatest thing that can happen to you is that you can, like Malcolm or like Martin Luther King, take a bullet for the people. We invite you to join our party saying it's revolutionary. Yes, the FBI watch us, but we're going to destroy them, just like we destroyed the draft. We're going to destroy them, just like we're going to destroy American imperialism, so we're not afraid of them. But if you don't want to join our organization because the FBI will watch you, at least you need to join another organization. And our party tells you all the time, if you don't join our party, join the APSB.
join Buffer, join Babo, join the Nation of Islam, join the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, join the Urban League, join the National Association of Advancement of Colored People, but join something. Because the reason your people suffer is that they lack organization. And organization is the weapon of the oppressed. Organization is the weapon of the oppressed. Until we're organized, we will suffer. And your passive action about helping to organize the people increases the active sufferance of your masses. Therefore, we urge you to come and join our party. If not, we tell you, please join any other organization working for your people. Thank you. Ready for the revolution.
Time, because I left my one. Okay, 2:40. Brother Kwame Ture has to leave at 3 o'clock, but at this time, if anyone wanted to ask any questions, we're having this time for question and answer period. And for the people who would like to stay, for the people who are leaving, if you're still interested or you want to come to the orientation will be tomorrow, the first one tomorrow in B114. From 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. That's the orientation for the work study circle process at APRP. There's a sign-up sheet on the table. I think it was also going around. For the people who are leaving, could you please leave quietly and we can start the question and answer period. I'm sorry, we don't have 2 mics, so maybe if you could stand up and ask the question.
Will you speak like that in Conakry?
Right now, like I'm speaking in Conakry right now?
Speak like that, the way you just spoke.
No, we have a military regime in Conakry. There's no politics. Of course, under Secretary, I spoke up about the revolution. I lived it, breathed it, slept it. Yes, Secretary was a revolutionary. You didn't know that?
I don't know. I mean, you could not speak exactly like that. I mean, so freely.
Why not? I spoke very freely.
I mean, against the government of Guinea.
Not speaking against the government of Guinea. It was a revolutionary government.
Thank you.
I would be very interested in hearing your perspective about this on Africa. I believe Africa belongs to African people, and doing a particular South Africa, situation in South Africa, and the Freedom Charter that says South Africa belongs to everyone. We're the only ones who have a charter that gives our birthright away to everyone. I mean, Europe doesn't belong to everyone, Great Britain doesn't belong to everyone, but South Africa belongs to everybody. And with that, it seems to me with that type of ideology, no wonder apartheid is still alive. I'm wondering, what is your position on the post-apartheid days in terms of the distribution of wealth and land? Should the whites be allowed to stay there as all destruction and decimation has provided them? Because I believe Africa belongs to African people, like Marcus was saying. And those who claim to be liberal, progressive, or white should understand we want our country for ourselves at last.
Well, of course, the question you ask is not one that I can answer politically, publicly. The reason is because were I to do that, our party would find itself in great problems publicly. We support publicly both the African National Congress and the Pan-Africanist Congress of Tanzania in South Africa. And you know, this line is a line of contention between the 2 organizations. Demonstrated even in their slogans. The slogan of the Pan-Africanist Congress of Tanzania is Izwiletu iAfrika. This land is ours, this Africa. And you know the line of the African National Congress, as you pointed out, revolves around the charter, where they say the land can be shared by all, and their slogan is Amandla, power to the people. So since we support them both, we cannot be involved in a public discussion that will anyway separate them. But of course, all those who look at the lines will have a proclivity one side or the other. But publicly, we're seeking very strongly to bring the 2 organizations together. We're very proud, you know. When the organization separated after 1984, before they had joint process, All revolutionary groups in this country, except very few small groups, nationalist groups like ourselves, the APSD, I think RNA was one of them, few of us refused to take the policy of attacking or insisting that ANC and PAC cannot appear on the platform together. We kept our line that they must appear together. We kept our line of support for both of them, while many in this country shifted to supporting only the African National Congress. We kept our line in everywhere we went, even the United Nations when they asked us to go. We always kept saying we want unity between the two liberation movements. And 3 weeks ago, they sat down in Johannesburg and finally signed a unity pact. So, in light of this, it would also put us in a very difficult problem if we were to publicly take divisions on the line. But we encourage everybody to do exactly as you've done, to read and to understand the lines of the different organizations, the political lines of the different political organizations in Zambia and South Africa, and of course, make your judgment on that basis.
No more questions?
Just you said that capitalism is the real enemy, that system which tends to exploit all peoples. How can we fight against it as we are part of living in this country under that system? We use greenbacks. What can we do to stop it right here? Can you give some ideas?
You must remember Malcolm's statement here that just because you're in the system don't mean you're part of it. The analogy we can use for you is that of slavery. We were slaves. We had to pick cotton. But while being slaves and picking cotton, we had to find ways to fight against slavery. So the contradiction is the same. We are forced to sell our labor in the capitalist system in order to live. But while being forced to sell our labor in the capitalist system in order to live, we must find ways of fighting this system that we're forced to live in. And just like slaves were able to bring down slavery, I haven't the slightest doubt that we'll be able to bring down capitalism. What it calls for then is a consciousness. You will see the distinction between slaves. A slave who picks cotton and thinks he's supposed to be a slave is finished. A slave who picks cotton and knows he's not supposed to be a slave is the conscious slave. This one will planning ways of escape, ways of destroying slavery. These are the ones that you first begin to work with. So, in your work under capitalism, you find the most conscious of those who will sell their labor to capitalism, forming organizations with them as they begin to map out the path to strike at capitalism.